Greetings and hello and welcome to ValorTube.com. My name is Paul Lear. I'm an original content provider with ValorTube.com. I'd like to welcome everybody to This Week in Prophecy. And so today's topic, today's question, you hear this a lot in circles, people asking the question, where's America in prophecy? And the short answer is we're not there. And pretty much you take a look at the lay of the land over the last 20 years or so, pretty much since 9/11, and every place we were, every place we have withdrawn from, prophecy is stepping in and filling the void. And, especially in light of the events that have happened recently in Afghanistan, as we've left there in a hasty manner. You can just see things happening quickly, breathtaking. I mean, the Taliban took over Afghanistan, which is over here on the far eastern part of this map. Follow the cursor. How quickly the Taliban moved in, took control, and how swiftly Russia, Turkey, and China have come to their defense to help these folks out. In a lot of this discussion is going to focus around the Ezekiel 38:39 prophecy, which effectively the cliff notes of that is Israel's going to be invaded from the north. Here's Israel here in the center. Israel will be invaded up here from the north through the Golan Heights, and Ezekiel says it'll come from Gog of Magog, which is modern day Russia, Beth Togarmah, Tubal, Meshech, Gomer, modern day Turkey, Persia, modern day Iran, Put, modern day Libya, and we'll lift up here just a little bit further to the south, Kush, which would be modern day Sudan, Ethiopia, this area here along the western shore of the Red Sea. So those are your actors in the prophecy. And it's like every place the United States is leaving, one of these characters is stepping into play. So that's going to be the idea behind it. As far as what we're talking about, also going to take a quick look at Scripture. And the other thing that I always read this passage, and specifically we're going to focus on Ezekiel 38 verse 13, Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish and all its leaders will say to you, have you come to seize spoil? Have you assembled your host to carry off? Have you assembled your host to carry off plunder, to carry away silver and gold, to take away livestock and goods, to seize great spoil? Now, arguably, that great spoil is going to be natural gas of Israel. But the point of the verse is that nobody comes to Israel's defense. You got some spectators just sitting there saying to Gog of Magog, Russia, are you really going to do this? They stand there and they question him, but they don't come to Israel's defense. Sheba Dedan, that's modern day Saudi Arabia. And the merchants of Tarshish, I would say loosely Western Europe. Now, I know we could have plenty of discussion. Some people will say it's England. Some people will say it's the United States. Some people will say, well, it's off the coast of Spain. But loosely, and if you're looking at it historically where all those are from, and I even got some people who will say that's the Philippines. I disagree with that, but I hear it and I know where you're coming from. I'm going to make the argument that it's Western Europe. And so you look at today's climate, the Saudis in Western Europe, you think they're going to say anything to Russia? You think the Philippines are going to say anything to Russia as their coalition's getting ready to go invade Israel? I mean, you don't want to be associated with this group. You're standing there. You're not coming to Israel's defense. But it just always perplexed me. How could, I realize what it says, that Israel will be isolated. Nobody will come to their defense. Well, you think about what happened in Afghanistan. You think Israel's counting on the United States and President Biden to come to their defense? I mean, the word you hear coming out of Israel, they realize, they're in a new world and they're going to have to defend themselves by themselves, that they're not counting on anybody to come to their defense and their security at this point. So, I mean, we've kind of arrived at that place. It's kind of stunning, kind of shocking. Uh, but if would you count on the United States to help you defend yourself if you were Israel? I mean, just take a look at China's already thumping its chest over there with Taiwan. South Korea doesn't doesn't really want our assistance. I mean, this has had some serious ripple effects, which clearly were not taken into consideration or calculation from the Biden administration. But it is what it is. We're here where we are. And the point I'm going to make is prophecy is filling the vacuum created by the United States. Because we're withdrawing from the world stage. This is from the New York Times, hardly somebody who's friendly to the Bible. And just read the headline from the New York Times. With Afghan collapse, Moscow takes charge in Central Asia, along with Pakistan and China. There's your 200 million man army from Revelation 9, I believe it is. Russia has gained broad influence in security matters at the expense of the United States and India. So again, I mean, the New York Times, their conclusion, I doubt they're looking to scripture for their inspiration and direction. They're just watching things happen for what they are and just watching players move and do their thing. And they come to the same conclusion as Ezekiel 38. Not that they need confirmation from scripture, but the world is in alignment with the prophet Ezekiel. Also, we're going to go to the Jerusalem Post. This was immediately after. This was within a day or two, so this is like a week ago now. Jerusalem Post: unpredictable consequences from the Afghan crisis as China, Russia, Iran, and others rise to the occasion. Again, there's biblical prophecy. China, Revelation, 200 million man army, Russia and China, Ezekiel 38:39 rise to the occasion. The ascent of the Taliban may signal a post-American world order. And even Turkey's jumping in. Turkey wants to help out as kind of like a big brother for guidance. And, we're here to help you. They're going to want to be part of the reconstruction of Afghanistan. And I want to say Afghanistan has some, looking at mining rare earth elements. So they've got some resources. They also have opiates. So that'll be something these fine folks can export to the rest of the planet. But there's a lot going on. And with the Taliban moving in, China wasted no time. Russia wasted no time recognizing the Taliban as a legitimate, the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. I think that's what they're calling themselves. But those two parties are on board recognizing the legitimacy of that as a government in Afghanistan. So we'll go back to the map here, and we're just going to take a look at different things as far as different countries. What's happened? Just quick histories of certain places, countries. The United States had a foothold. United States steps out. And again, Ezekiel 38:39 takes its place as the idea. And the first place we're going to take a look at is Libya. Looking up scripture up here, Ezekiel 38, verse 5, Persia, which would be Iran, Cush, around the Horn, and Put, that's Libya, with them, with them with shield and helmet. They're going to join Gog of Magog in the pending invasion. And so, all that was pretty much set into motion with the death of Gaddafi in 2011 under the Obama administration. We had the events in Benghazi, 2012 on 9/11, which is something to think about. Here we said on August 22nd, we got 9/11 coming up here in about 2-3 weeks, about 3 weeks. 20th anniversary of that. Somebody's wanting to make a big splash as a reminder. But we had the event of 9/11 in Benghazi of 2012, and then pretty much since then, Libya's been in civil war, um, which kind of leads us to where we are now. You have Russia sending troops in. Russia has a port and armed forces. Benghazi is kind of a stationing place for them to bring their hardware into Libya, and of course, it has to do with oil and gas. Libya is the largest producer in Africa of oil and gas, so Russia wants to control that. Turkey's involved; they're sending troops. They appear to be at odds, but it's kind of like Syria; they seem to be working together. Russia has its finger in everything in regards to the flow and distribution of oil and gas, whether it's northern Africa or in the Middle East. And last week had a report, courtesy of Checkmate, sent me some articles in regards to Putin wanting to influence Libyan elections, have himself a little, he'd be a kingmaker, put his man in there, freely elected, of course, by the Libyan people. But he's making a push for Gaddafi's son because if he gets his man in there, he can help control the flow of oil. is the idea. And quick sidebar on that. If you guys aren't following Checkmate on ValorTube, highly recommend it. This guy's locked in on the Middle East. Great analysis of the events and a command of the events of what's taken place. Highly recommend following Checkmate, another original content provider on ValorTube. So, there you have Libya. The second one we're going to take a look at is Saudi Arabia. That'd be Sheba and Dedan. We touched on that briefly from Ezekiel 38 and 13. Again, they're kind of standing around watching. And you think about this in terms of why they're standing around and watching. This is another graph that was provided to me by Checkmate, and it pretty well sums it up. This is the Arabian Peninsula. They're pretty much surrounded by Iranian proxies. They have a choke point here at the Straits of Hormuz. They have the Houthis or the Houthis in Houthis in Yemen. Again, it's another Iranian proxy. They have a choke point down here entering into the Red Sea. That would be an Iranian proxy. And they're lined up all along the western shore of the Red Sea. You can see all the Iranian proxies. You get up into Lebanon, you have Hezbollah. I mean, Iran is everywhere, all around the Arabian Peninsula. So what is Sheba, Dedan? Really, what are they going to do if they do anything? They're surrounded by Iranian proxies who want to do harm to them. So they're just going to sit there and talk. That's pretty much what scripture has to say about it. And all they're going to say is, if you come to see spoil, they're going to question them. I'm not going to go through all that again. But if you look at this from a geopolitical standpoint, what can they really do about it? If they do it, they're surrounded on all sides by Shia Iranian proxies. They're Sunni. And all that boils down to is wanting to control the religious sites in Mecca. They happen to be in Saudi Arabia. Iran wants to control the religious sites. So does Turkey, for that matter, the Muslim Brotherhood version of the Sunni part of Islam. But you can see the Saudis being surrounded. They're not in any kind of position to go up there and challenge Russia and friends from the north. So that kind of makes sense from that standpoint. Which leads us to our next one, and that'll be Iraq. Quick history of the events that have happened in Iraq since 2006. 2006 spelled the end of Saddam Hussein in 2006. Now, granted, the majority of the folks in Iraq are Shia, but you had a Sunni minority in Saddam Hussein, and I think it was the Ba'ath Party, the Ba'athist Party, and they're Sunni, but they were a minority and they controlled the situation. Saddam's out. 2006, Saddam dies. Took some time, but this group called ISIS, again, another Sunni Islam group, they took over and they tried to run the show. Now they controlled all of this land up, a lot of land up here in northern Iraq into Syria. They reached the height of their power in 2017 till President Trump and a coalition took care of ISIS. And then here we are 3-4 years later, 2021, after ISIS is expelled. Now you have Iran stepping in and effectively controlling Iraq. I understand that that's the Iraqi government says they're in charge. I understand that, but it is Shia Islam, and that's Iran's goal, is to control this area, have a Shia corridor to the Mediterranean Sea for the distribution of oil and gas. And so you can just see how United States steps in, removes Saddam, '06, tries to put their guy in charge, their puppet, couldn't control it. ISIS moves in, United States and others move in, kick out ISIS, and then United States leaves the region. Iran and Shia Muslims have kind of assumed power in the area, which takes us to Syria. Syria has been in civil war since 2011, and I'm going to go to this up here, and this is like an animation of the Syrian civil war. Main things to keep track of. This is just going to be constantly running. It's a GIF, but this is the date. So we're looking at September of 2017. Now we're looking at 2018. The number at the front, so that's like March 2019. This thing's going to reset, and we're going to start back over in October of 2011 when all the events took place. The Arab Spring, it was an attempted removal of current president. He's still in there. Bashar al-Assad remains in power. And let's look at the groups. So here in the pink, kind of reddish pink, Syrian government and allies. That's the area where you see that color that's in control. The yellow would be Kurdish forces. And as this thing runs its course through 2019, this has already changed. The Kurds have pretty much been kicked out. And you got Shia, who've actually kind of moved in and controlled that. You have Syrian opposition. This is the group of people that wanted Assad out. You can also see Russian bases have moved in at Latakia and Tartus. So you have Russia interjecting itself into the theater around December 2015, and they've continued to spread. They first came in from the north, and they've worked their way down. And there are even Russian forces down here on the Golan Heights in Qunitra. The UN's here as well. And of course, we have Israel right here. And this is where all this is going to start, and they're going to try to move in. But you can just see how rapidly events have taken place over the last 10 years. And, Assad crossed Obama's red line in 2012. Didn't do anything about it. Guy remains in power. Trump came in, frankly, gave a few little pinpricks to some empty buildings. Looked kind of tough, but didn't really do anything. Let Russia continue to fill the void. Turkey has filled the void all across the northern border. If anything, I would say Turkey controls this border between Turkey and Syria. There are more, those U.S. bases aren't there anymore. And that was 2 years ago. This runs through 2019. We don't have those. The latest I saw, we've got some stuff down here on the Euphrates River, Deir ez-Zor, in this part of the country, where we do have some intervention. The last I heard, I've also heard that Iranian proxies are also bringing more equipment, weapons, troops in from northern Iraq into eastern Syria as well. Um, so again, things are rapidly changing all across the country of Syria. They continue to change across Syria. And again, the idea is when the United States steps out, prophecy moves in. Russia, Iranian proxies have moved into Syria. And that's the one thing that kind of fascinates me about just the Syrian civil war. So this has been going on close to 10 years. The tribulation only lasts 7. So when all this stuff goes down on a global scale, it will happen faster than what Syria has been in civil war. Syria has been in civil war for going on 10 years. God's going to close out humanity and put his king in charge, and it's only going to take 7. And that's on a global scale. So man hasn't straightened out Syria in 10 years. Just to give you an idea, scope, scale, speed, time, etc. And then we'll back out to Russia just in general. Russia's been very active, and Russia seems to be pretty concerned about controlling areas related to the Black Sea, port activity on the Black Sea, so they have access through the Bosphorus Straits, through Istanbul, access to the Mediterranean Sea. They've annexed parts of Georgia, again, would appear to be for the movement. What you think about the movement of troops to make all this happen eventually down here in northern Israel? You have a nice little corridor where you can move things along through land, through western Georgia, through Turkey, and down into Syria. Also, they have control of the Black Sea, ports along the Black Sea, in and around Georgia, where they've moved in, annexed part of Georgia. Also, they have claimed to have taken, they recognize the Crimean Peninsula as theirs, no longer belonging to the Ukraine. And then also, they have activity along the eastern border of the Ukraine. Russia's been very active with military, essentially creating kind of like a little firewall so they can move up and down through the Caucasus and do whatever they want to get access to the Middle East and all the oil. So you have Russia, and of course, Russia is also involved in Libya. Russia is going to support Iran. They've stepped in to help recognize Afghanistan. They're all over the region. They are kind of putting their stamp on it. And it's all about oil flow and gas flow. Who's going to sell to Western Europe? Well, Russia wants to do that, and they're going to be the leader. Lines right up with Ezekiel 38 and 39. Last country we're going to look at is Lebanon. And Lebanon is on Israel's northern border. Here's the border between Lebanon and Israel. Currently, Lebanon's in economic collapse, hyperinflation, shortages of all kinds of products, fuel, electricity, food, medicines being impacted, healthcare's being impacted, and nobody's really, the government has stepped down, stepped away. We've had a couple of people try to step in and do something. But who's there? Again, it's another proxy, Iranian proxy. Hezbollah's there, and they seem to be filling the void to some degree. Now it's going to be interesting to see, will they actually step up and be the leading party to run the government or not? Now, prophetically, this is speculation in a just looking at scripture. It will not surprise me if you see Russia and Turkey step in and fill the void that's been created in Lebanon. And it makes sense because you got Russia here in Latakia and Tartus, so it wouldn't be a problem for them to step into Tripoli and Beirut and take control of that, and that also would give Russia a stronger foothold of naval bases on the Mediterranean. And then also you have, we talked about this in the past, you have the biblical towns of Tyre and Sidon. They're back in the news. They're in Lebanon. But the point being, it won't surprise me a bit if Russia steps in and Turkey steps in. And again, Ezekiel 38 and 39 becomes more focused and becomes, the characters of the prophecy, it becomes clearer and clearer with each passing day. So it would stand to reason that they will step into Lebanon as well. So again, that's just an overview of things that have happened, roughly in the last, 10 years. That's like a 10-year swath of recent history, and how, and the idea, going back to the original question, where's America in prophecy? Well, we're stepping out of the region. We're stepping out with our influence in the region, and where we've stepped out, prophecies filled the vacuum, and specifically Russia, Turkey, China, Iran, and they're all working in concert to control the Middle East, the flow of oil and gas to their customers in Western Europe, and they will leverage those folks up in the West over oil and gas and energy. And it is Russia's intent, Moscow's intent, Putin's intent to do that. Looks like he's got a pretty good plan in place, and he's been executing for about the last 10 years. It's frankly kind of picked up speed, most recently in Libya, along with Turkey. He's had some help from Turkey. Got the Nord Stream pipeline getting ready to come on. Little thing that the Turks and the Russians have put together, again, for the distribution of oil and gas to Western Europe. So lots of moving parts. And that prophecy, Ezekiel 38 and 39, they invade for economic purposes. That's what it's all about. Take spoil and plunder oil and gas, specifically natural gas, off the coast of Israel that belongs to Israel. So we know how it ends. It's just fascinating watching it happen in today's time. Now, when's this going to happen? We don't know for sure. Could be a year away or less, or it could be 10 years, 100 years. We don't know. But what we do know is the pieces are falling into place, frankly, in a rather rapid amount of time, and especially just how quickly that happened in Afghanistan. I mean, things can literally change within a week's time. A government was overthrown within a week in Afghanistan. The United States is out. Prophecy steps in. Russia, China, Iran. Iran's got to be happy. They lost the United States on their eastern border. So that's one less place they got to worry about. Makes Pakistan kind of interesting. We'll see what happens there, but that's a story for another day. I know Checkmate has had some interesting analysis in regards to Pakistan and what could or may not have happened with those folks as well. So that's just it. We know how it's going to end, but we don't know the twists and the turns and how we get there. But there seems to be, the prophecy seems to be falling into shape. Things are making sense. Current geopolitical news and events are lining up with Scripture, and becomes clearer and clearer every day. So appreciate you guys spending some time with us. Look forward to talking with you in the future. Have a great one. Thanks for listening to valortube.com. Take care. Bye.